While most people argue about things like a $15 minimum wage, celebrities are setting up money machines that will pay their great-grandkids. Just look at Michael Jackson. Since he passed away in 2009, his estate has made over $2 billion, even though he died $500 million in debt. Crazy, right? But here's an even wilder stat. Elvis Presley earns more money dead than most celebrities do alive. His estate still pulls in over $55 million every single year. That's more than many A-listers working today. So how does a guy who died in 1977 financially outperform Hollywood's biggest stars? Most people think it's simple celebrities make more money, so of course they stay rich. But that's not the real story. The real difference is in the financial systems they use, strategies that most people never even hear about. In this video, I'm going to break down those systems, how celebrities build generational wealth, why the average person is locked out of them, and 3 strategies you can start using today, no matter what your income is. But first, let me tell you about the $50,000 mistake that almost wiped out my life savings. Personal story. 5 years ago, I thought I was doing everything right with my money. I had managed to save up $75,000 from my regular job. I lived below my means. I invested in index funds. I felt like I was finally on track. Then one night at a networking event, I met this guy. He pitched me a guaranteed real estate investment, a luxury apartment complex in a growing city. The minimum buy-in, $50,000. The promised returns, 18% a year. Compared to my slow and steady 7% index funds, it sounded like a no-brainer. And I'll be honest, I was hooked. I didn't ask the tough questions. I didn't check the legal structure. I didn't think about exit strategies. I didn't even ask about protections if things went south. I just saw 18% and jumped in. Here's what actually happened. The project got delayed, costs spiraled, and because it was set up as a limited partnership, I had no control and no protection. The general partners made all the decisions, burned through the cash, and when the whole thing collapsed, I was left holding the bag. Out of the $50,000 I invested, I lost $47,000, almost my entire life savings. And that's when it hit me. This is why celebrities stay wealthy, while so many regular people get wiped out chasing great opportunities. The rich don't just chase returns. They understand the systems, the structures that protect money even when things go wrong. The 2-tier financial system. Here's the financial roadmap most people are told to follow. Work hard. Save 10 to 20% of your paycheck. Throw it into index funds. And then, cross your fingers and hope compound interest works its magic over 40 years. And listen, that advice isn't wrong. It's solid, but it'll usually only get you to a comfortable retirement, not generational wealth. Because here's the truth. Once you hit a certain level of money, usually $1 to $5 million in investable assets, an entirely new playbook opens up. These aren't secret conspiracies. They're just tools designed for different wealth levels. Imagine money like a giant casino. Most of us are stuck on the main floor, playing slot machines and blackjack. The odds aren't great, but you can still win if you play long enough. Meanwhile, upstairs there's a VIP floor, different games, better odds, and sometimes the house even helps you win. The catch? You need a special key card, and that key card costs millions. That's why regular investors might see 7 to 10% returns in the stock market. But accredited investors, people making $200,000 a year or worth over $1 million, can get into private deals that promise 15 to 25% returns. And here's where the gap explodes. If you start with $10,000 and I start with $1 million, and we both earn 10%, after the first year, you've got $11,000. I've got $1.1 million. The dollar gap between us just got $90,000 bigger every single year. But here's what's crazy. Elvis Presley's estate found a way to beat this system entirely, and it's still paying his family today. Elvis Estate Masterclass. When Elvis died back in 1977, his estate was only worth about $5 million. Not bad, but nothing compared to what it's worth today. By the time his daughter, Lisa Marie, turned 25, smart managers had grown that $5 million into $100 million through merch and licensing deals. Sounds great, right? Except here's the twist: Lisa Marie managed to burn through almost all of it. We're talking bad investments, a messy divorce, just flat-out poor money decisions. By 2004, she had less than $14,000 in cash and was drowning in debt. Imagine going from $100 million to basically broke. But here's the genius part. The estate had been set up with something called asset protection. The crown jewels, Graceland, Elvis's name, his likeness were locked inside trusts, and creditors couldn't touch them, no matter how bad Lisa Marie's personal finances got. Fast forward to 2013, and those protected assets were still generating serious money. She sold 85% of the estate for somewhere between $100 and $200 million. The only reason the Presley family didn't lose everything was because of the way Elvis's estate was structured. In other words, the money was protected from the person who owned it. And if that sounds smart, wait until you hear about George Lucas, the guy who turned a $2,000 idea into a $4 billion empire, just by negotiating one little detail most people laughed at. Elvis's story shows how the right financial structures can protect wealth, even when the people managing it make mistakes. But some celebrities don't just protect wealth, they build empires that grow for decades. And no one did this better, or more unexpectedly, than George Lucas. George Lucas. Case study. Back in 1977, George Lucas wasn't the Hollywood legend we know today. He was just some young director with a weird little space movie called Star Wars. 20th Century Fox thought the movie was going to flop. So when Lucas said, "Hey, instead of paying me more as a director, can I just keep the merchandising rights?" the studio basically laughed and said, "Sure, kid, take the toys." That single decision went on to generate over $12 billion in revenue. Billion, with a B. But here's where Lucas was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. He didn't keep those rights in his personal name. He created Lucasfilm Limited, a company that owned not just the toys, but the sequels, the licensing, everything. Fast forward to 2012. Disney buys Lucasfilm for $4.05 billion. And what they bought wasn't just a company. It was a money printing machine that had been running non-stop for 35 years. Here's the genius. Lucas walked away from the guaranteed money, up front the safe paycheck. Instead, he bet on the uncertain back end, and that bet made him a billionaire. Now sure, Lucas had leverage. He had a hit movie, but the principle applies everywhere. Ownership beats paychecks. Trade short-term certainty for long-term control, and you're playing the wealth game the way the rich do. And speaking of ownership, there's one celebrity who used the exact same idea, but instead of movies, she reinvented the beauty industry. Let's talk about Rihanna. Rihanna business blueprint. Everyone knows Rihanna as a superstar musician, but here's the secret. Her billionaire status didn't come from music. In 2017, she launched Fenty Beauty with luxury giant LVMH, and she spotted a gap nobody else was paying attention to. Most makeup brands barely cater to diverse skin tones. She solved that problem, and the market exploded. Here's the smart move. Instead of just slapping her name on the brand for a quick paycheck, Rihanna negotiated 50% ownership. The result? Fenty Beauty did $100 million in sales in its first 40 days. Today, the company's worth around $2.8 billion, which makes her half worth over $1.4 billion. And she didn't stop there. She pulled the same playbook with Savage X Fenty lingerie. Inclusive sizing, diverse representation, and once again, ownership over endorsement. That brand, now valued over $1 billion. See the pattern? Rihanna used her platform, her fame, and her audience as the launchpad, but she didn't stop at being the face. She became the owner, and that's the real difference. Celebrities who stay wealthy don't think in terms of paychecks. They think in terms of systems and ownership. And she's not alone. Another celebrity has applied this exact formula again and again across music, fashion, streaming, and even champagne. Let's talk about Jay-Z. Jay-Z's empire-building strategy. Jay-Z is the perfect example of how to turn talent into an empire. He didn't just stay a rapper. He thought like a CEO. That's how he became a billionaire. Back in 1999, he co-founded Rocawear Clothing, cost him about $50 million to get rolling. Just 7 years later, he sold it for $204 million. That's a 400% return. But here's the genius move: he kept the licensing rights. Translation: he still got paid royalties without having to run the business anymore. Then came Tidal. Everyone laughed when he launched just another music streaming service. But Jay-Z wasn't trying to beat Spotify on features. He was building a platform he actually owned. And when Sprint bought 33% of Tidal for $200 million in 2017, his stake instantly skyrocketed in value. But his biggest win came with champagne. In 2014, Jay-Z bought the luxury brand Armand de Brignac. 7 years later, he sold half of it to LVMH for around $630 million. Think about that, he didn't endorse the champagne. He bought it, built it, and flipped it into a fortune. The pattern is crystal clear. Jay-Z doesn't just lend his name for a paycheck. He turns his celebrity into equity ownership, then sells at massive multiples. And he's not the only one. Another celebrity took this playbook and applied it to an even bigger stage, not just building brands, but owning the entire platform. That's Oprah's genius. The Oprah media monopoly. Oprah's wealth strategy shows us something most people completely miss about generational wealth. She doesn't just create content, she owns the entire system that delivers it. When she launched The Oprah Winfrey Show, she pulled off a move almost nobody else had the guts to try. Instead of being an employee like every other TV host, she negotiated ownership of the show itself through her company, Harpo Productions. That made her the boss, selling the show to networks not working for them. And because of that ownership, when her show became the highest-rated talk show in history, she captured almost all the value. By the time it ended in 2011, Oprah had earned over $2.5 billion from 25 years of control. But she wasn't done. In 2011, she launched her own cable channel, OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network. Now she wasn't just the host on someone else's platform. She was the platform. When other celebrities wanted to appear, they were literally paying Oprah for access to her audience. And she applied the same formula outside of TV. In 2015, she bought 10% of Weight Watchers for $43 million. With her endorsement and board seat, the stock jumped more than 400%. At its peak, her stake was worth nearly $400 million. Oprah's blueprint is simple but powerful. Build an audience, own the platform, and then use that platform to spin off multiple income streams. She doesn't just play the game, she controls the board. And speaking of playing the game differently, another celebrity has cracked modern wealth building with an entirely new twist, using his personal brand as a marketing weapon. That's Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds' marketing genius. Ryan Reynolds has basically hacked modern celebrity wealth building. Instead of just endorsing products, he's turned his personal brand into a business-building machine. Take aviation gin. In 2018, Reynolds bought a stake in what was then a small, relatively unknown brand. But here's the twist. Instead of just being the face of the company, he became its chief creative officer. He wrote the ads, starred in the ads, and made them feel more like comedy sketches than commercials. The results? Aviation gin went from a niche spirit to a cultural phenomenon. And when Diageo bought it in 2020, Reynolds reportedly walked away with over $600 million. But he didn't stop there. He pulled the same move with Mint Mobile. This time, he wasn't just an investor, he was co-owner and creative director. And instead of slick, polished ads, he leaned into his self-deprecating humor. Stuff like, "I know what you're thinking. Why is the guy from Green Lantern selling phone plans?" That strategy worked. Mint Mobile exploded in popularity. And when T-Mobile bought it in 2023, Reynolds made an estimated $300 million plus from his stake. So what's the Reynolds method? Simple. Buy into undervalued brands. Use your personal brand to market them in ways traditional companies can't. Scale them fast, then sell to big corporations for massive profits. He's not just an endorser, he's part marketer, part entrepreneur, and he captures the upside through ownership, not paychecks. And here's the thing, you don't have to be Ryan Reynolds to apply these lessons. The same wealth-building principles work at any level. Let's break them down into 3 strategies you can use today. 3 actionable strategies. All right, we've seen how celebrities use ownership, leverage, and smart structures to stay rich. But let's get practical. What can you do, starting right now? Here are 3 strategies you can actually put into play today. Strategy 1. Create multiple income streams. Look at Jay-Z, Oprah, Ryan Reynolds. They don't rely on one paycheck. Each income stream feeds the others. Jay-Z's music boosted Rockaware. That boosted his credibility to launch Tidal. That positioned him for luxury deals like Armand de Brignac Champagne. Here's the takeaway for regular people. Build expertise, document it, and turn it into something people will pay for. Start a blog, YouTube channel, or social account in your field. Notice the questions people keep asking. Those are opportunities. Create solutions. Maybe it's a digital course. Maybe it's consulting. Maybe it's a simple tool. Start small. Even a $50 product can grow into something big. Real example, a teacher started making math tutoring videos during the pandemic. That little side hustle turned into a 6-figure online course business. The goal isn't to quit your job tomorrow, it's to stop relying on just one source of income. Strategy 2. Optimize your taxes legally. Celebrities use complicated corporate structures to save millions. You don't need that level of complexity to start saving real money. Max out your 401k, $23,000 for 2024. Or $30,500 if you're over 50. Use an HSA as a stealth retirement account, triple tax advantaged. Do tax loss harvesting in your brokerage account. If you're self-employed, look at a SEP IRA or solo 401k. And here's the advanced move. Once you're making $50,000 or more from a side hustle, talk to a CPA about forming an S-Corp. A freelance designer making $60,000 could save $3,000 to $5,000 a year just by optimizing salary versus distributions. That's money most people leave on the table. Strategy 3. Think in assets, not paychecks. Celebrities don't just chase income. They buy assets that keep paying them long after the work is done. Elvis's estate still generates $55 million a year. Jay-Z sold businesses, but kept licensing rights. Oprah owns the platforms that others pay to use. You can do the same thing at your level. After your emergency fund, focus on assets that grow. Index funds, real estate, even your own skills. Remember, every dollar is a choice. Spend it today or grow it for tomorrow. Think in decades. Wealth isn't built in 5 years, it's built in 30. Here's a simple example. Instead of buying a $30,000 new car, buy a $15,000 reliable used one. Invest the $15,000 you saved. Over 30 years, at 7% returns, that money grows to $114,000. The car will be worthless, but the investment could fund your retirement. The big insight: successful people separate lifestyle from wealth building. Just because they make more doesn't mean they spend more. They keep their lifestyle steady and let the extra income build assets. My $50,000 mistake taught me the hard way. Saving money and managing money are 2 very different skills. But the good news is, you can learn them, and you don't need VIP access to build wealth. The ground floor strategies, used consistently, can make you a millionaire. The real problem is most people don't even play the ground floor games. Less than 20% max out their 401k. Less than 10% have a proper emergency fund. So here's your action plan. This week, pick one strategy and act. Start a side hustle, boost your 401k, or set up automatic investing. This month, create separation between your lifestyle money and your wealth-building money. This year, focus on growing your income through skills or side businesses. The celebrities we've talked about, from Elvis to Jay-Z to Ryan Reynolds, all built wealth on these exact same principles. The only difference? They stayed consistent, and they thought in decades, not years. Here's the bottom line. You don't need to be Elvis, Jay-Z, or Rihanna to start building real wealth. You just need to play the game smarter than most people and stick with it long enough for the results to pile up. So tell me in the comments, which strategy are you going to start with first? Side hustle, tax moves, long-term investing? I read every single comment, and I often drop in with tips that can help you take the next step. And if you found this helpful, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this with more people who need it. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next video in this series, The Psychology of Money. That one might completely change the way you think about building wealth. Until then, remember, it's not about playing the celebrity game. It's about playing your game better than anyone else.